Welcome to the Makai Sentai podcast, episode 3, half-year retrospective. So joining me today is Hayzink. How you doing?
Alright, mate. No bad. How you?
Not too bad. So this episode we're going to look at Reflection Week, and instead of looking at the actual specifics, we're going to take a look at the half anniversary of the game itself, and look at the first 6 months of the game's updates, of the game's content, and some of the community goings on, and some of the controversies, as it were, between launch and now. Anything come to mind, by the way, over the past couple of months? Of anything to talk about?
Over the past couple of months?
Uh huh.
I mean, nothing major to be honest. I actually
No.
I feel like they've turned the corner slightly. Like any kind of missteps have been fairly minor. I think all the big things happened at the start, and like to be honest, yeah, people always find something to moan about, but that's just human nature in it. But I don't really think
Oh, for
anything.
sure.
I don't really think there's anything that I really think is like dramatic. Oh, pity! What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Pity, pity, TC pity. Yes,
Yeah.
the traditional Chinese pity. Yes, that was actually a big thing. I don't think that was anything like fundamentally wrong with the game in the traditional sense of bulk trend mistakes. I
Yeah.
think that was just a major misreading of the player base more than anything else. Either misreading or not caring, one or the other. But I think we should maybe leave that till we get to more that era, if you know what I mean. We don't want to like do a reflection and start talking for 20 minutes about bloody pity when it's something that only happened last month, basically. But I'd say that's been the
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's been the biggest thing in recent times.
Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to take a look back at the start, the launch of the game. And then whenever this guy RPG launched, everything was fantastic. There was no big controversies. Everyone was happy, and it had a great start. Would you agree with that summary?
I feel like you're missing out on the rollback drama, but okay. I mean, the rollback drama was like, was that not like week one? Because I remember
Yeah.
I summoned like I was stupid at that point. I was chasing Giro Laharo on the premium summon banner, which don't ask me why.
Was she was she in? Was she in? I don't
Yeah,
think she was
yeah,
in on the
yeah,
first
yeah,
month.
yeah,
She
yeah,
was in
yeah.
on May.
No, no,
She
no.
wasn't in the first month.
She was in
The first
pretty.
month?
She was in.
Was she?
She was in before the rollback because I summoned like maybe 30k quartz trying to get her, which was just dumb. It was like so dumb because I didn't really understand what in the guaranteed slot meant, and I'm like, oh well, let's go for it. And I built up a
So
lot of
whenever
units.
whenever this guy launched, like one of the big things that people had been expecting from JP was for them to learn the lessons, particularly around pity, because JP got pity eventually after they didn't have the best of starts either. They had a big long holiday to celebrate some of the changes they needed to make to the game. So I think there's a lot of expectations around the global launch in April that they would have had some kind of pity system in place, and they launched without pity. So how do you think that was? Like they could have had something in place. Like there's nothing stopping them to have had something in place day one, but they chose not to,
Well,
and to see a wait and see approach. Or do you think they chose not to? Do you think it was beyond
Well,
their capabilities?
you say there was nothing stopping them. We don't know that strictly. There could have been like contractual things that stopped them. I almost feel like, and this will probably sound horrible, but I almost feel like Forward Works decided, you know what, Japanese players had to eat a shit sandwich, so global players can eat a shit sandwich and they'll get their pity at some point. I almost feel that that's what's happened because, to be honest, if Bolt Trend had complete autonomy and they could make the decisions themselves, I feel like it would
Yeah.
have been very stupid of them not to launch the game with Pity because I know people who played the global beta told them to launch with Pity. We all told them as players from month one, particularly in the content creators chat that I was a part of quite early on. It was something that when we had content creators, because let's be real, not being funny, but I mean, apart from me, there's maybe like one other active content creator that makes content for Disgaea RPG. Like in the traditional sense, you make content for this podcast, but I mean more on the daily videos, like for showcases and all that type of stuff. We went from
Yeah,
having quite a lot of content creators to having pretty much nothing, and a lot of that was to do with things like pity. People just didn't want to wait for it. Like they knew it was eventually coming, but they decided, no, I'm not going to wait. Whereas I personally took a different approach, which was, this isn't my first rodeo. I know what to expect from a gacha game, and I'm quite happy to roll on with it. But I do feel they should have applied pity earlier. But I feel like pity is going to become a big subject in this chat a little bit later. So I think maybe we should park that for now and talk about
it's not
that
the
a bit
last
later.
you've heard of Pity. Yeah, it's definitely not the last we really bring up Pity. But you were saying about the refund drama, and there was also the hype around New Year Rosalind that caused quite a commotion in the community. I don't think it'd be wise to move beyond this without bringing up the whole Rosalind um, issue.
Well, see, I get I take some responsibility for that, right? Because I made a video and I put on my thumbnail that she was a must summon unit, okay? However, I've watched it back and basically I was chatting during the live stream and I was so lazy at that point I didn't want to make another video, so I just clipped it from the live stream. And I only really made one video talking about her, and I very, very quickly said to people, you know what, she's a bit overrated. Don't go all out, and um, don't like blow your load on her, so to speak. And it's probably not the first time I'll mention this name in this video, but me and Gacha like spoke about it and we said, look, let's make a pact, me and you, from now on. When we do our character showcases, let's agree that we're not going to gas up these units and tell people, oh my god, you must summon. Because we came from Dokkan, right? And in Dokkan,
Yeah,
there was such a thing as must summon units, okay? Now, even though Dokkan was PvE, to get past harder content, you could literally summon a unit that was just so broken, his kit was so broken that you could easily just walk content. And they would be classed as must summon units. And we kind of came from that background of that's what we were used to. So when we at first started to experience tier lists and stuff like that and we were using second hand information, sure, we got the wrong impression, I want to say, of New Year Rosalind. But another thing that myself at first, and he's not here to deny this, but it's true, Gacha later copied, was I said, Gacha, I'm going to get a JP account, I'm going to play JP, I'm going to go hands on with these units, and I'm going to put out JP content. That way I can use that content as a backbone for my global content, I can get footage and stuff like that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Gacha actually did say in his video, I was inspired by Hayzink to do this, so it's not as if me saying he copied the idea is like not true, because he even said it in his own video, but we both wanted to go hands on, and rather than relying on Japanese tier lists, we wanted to make our own decisions and give people our own points of view, because quite often I don't agree with the Japanese tier lists. It's like, for example, if you look at Summer Desco, who's currently live on Global right now, and she'll still be live when this podcast goes live, she's classed like really, really highly on Japanese tier lists. But the problem is, you don't really have the builds to sustain her to make her like the int Overlord Asagi, do you know what I mean? As people like to call her. But what people forget with Overlord Asagi is you naturally can build a team with her that has Mega Braveheart units that make her stronger, but those units also feed into the rest of her abilities. You don't need to, apart from having multiple Asalias, which in itself can be fairly difficult, okay? But if you have those Asalias, you're not making some cockamamie team that you wouldn't normally build. It's a natural team, it naturally feeds into her, whereas if you look at monster magic units, we just don't have the pool of characters to make something that makes Summer Desco this must have a, I think it's like double S rank unit or some nonsense like that.
I want to return back to that before. I want to ask you a wee question. Like, what do you think are the lessons that folks learn from that New Year Rosalind situation? Because there was definitely a shift in the community, like even in the community size, in terms of creator coverage, for example, before and after New Year Rosalind. So, what do you think the lessons are to learn from that?
Um, I mean, I guess it's threefold to be honest. People, the community themselves learned very quickly what content creators they wanted to follow and what ones they didn't. That was before they had a choice, right? Before they didn't
Yeah.
have a choice, before they didn't have a choice, so to speak. But at that point, a lot of people started to say, "Oh, I don't want to watch this person. They're a money so and so. I don't want to watch this person." And then other people would be like, "These content creators gassed up these units and." We didn't pull them. I've blown all my quartz, so I'm going to quit. And then there was other people who watched the content and decided, you know what, I'm going to make my own mind up. You don't have to go in on every single unit in this game, and I think that people now, not all people, because unfortunately I think there's still a hype train for characters like Overlord Asagi, for example. I feel like she could have quite easily been another New Year Roslyn, and I feel like somehow we dodged that bullet. I don't know how, but I don't feel that
Yeah.
we had the I don't feel that we had the bloodletting that I expected to have. I thought it was going to be New Year Ros 2.0.
Do you think that's because the community's smaller, so there's less people to hype it, and people like yourself being one of the more prominent ones, you weren't hyping her, so like, where would the hype have come from?
I feel like people were hyping her in the Discord. I just feel that we now have a player base who are more gacha focused, and it's not their first gacha game, so they do, even though it sucks to not get a unit, they know that that's just RNG, that's just how it goes. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Whereas back when New Year Roslyn came out, we had a lot of Disgaea console players, and I feel like a lot of those players, this was their first gacha title, and they didn't know what to expect. They didn't realise you could spend £1,000, let's be honest, and not get a unit, and they weren't prepared for that. And to be honest, I don't blame them. Let's be completely honest. Gacha games as a concept are predatory. That's what they are. They ride on people specifically having that fear of missing out and wanting to get a character. And people who came from Disgaea mainline, they just think, oh sod it, I'm just going to download Disgaea 5 again and play it on my PC. I'm not going to do this anymore. So I feel like now what we have is a group of players who, if they did summon all their quartz away, they would be a bit upset about it, but they would probably just be like, ugh, damn it, I guess I've got to go back on the grind and build up my currency again, and maybe I'll get them next time. So I think that's the main difference.
Do you feel then that the New Year Roslyn moment, as early as it was like a watershed moment between removing the more casual players from the player base and just leaving more dedicated players?
Well, I do and I don't, because obviously I think that if New Year Roslyn had happened a little bit later, some of those more casual players may have become more invested into the game. They may have get more used to the systems on offer, like the gacha system. They may have become attached to their accounts and decided I don't want to quit if I don't get this character. I also feel like if New Year Roslyn hadn't happened as early as it did, content creators like myself and Gacha would have got a better grasp of the game, because I'll be honest, like, I think New Year Rosalind was probably the last unit that either me or Gacha looked at a tier list. I don't look at tier lists. I couldn't. If someone was to ask me right now where a unit is ranked in JP, I wouldn't know. The only reason that I even know that King Kachevsky that came out on JP is classed as like the first SSS tier unit is because I just happened to be in the Japanese chat section of the official Discord, and someone posted we've just had the first SSS tier unit. But literally, I couldn't tell you where units are ranked on a tier list. When I talk about units, I really don't try and assign a grade. Someone recently asked me to start grading characters, give them like a Prinny score out of 10 or whatever, but I don't want to do that because I find it quite arbitrary. Because what I think of a unit, you might not think of that unit, because you might not have the characters that make that unit good on your team. I just feel like this guy RPG has a lot of nuance that, with team builds, with the way that you structure your squad, there's not really such a thing as a must summon unit in this game, because like, if you don't have the rest of the pieces of the puzzle to go alongside that character, then that character could just be trash and sit in your box. So I just feel like if New Year Roslyn had happened just a little bit later on, then I can only speak for me and Gacha. I know we would have approached things differently. I can't say the same for everyone else because some people are just clickbaiters. That's just how they use their YouTube channels, and I feel like for as long as they were making content, they would have continued to blow it up. Because even after New Year Roslin, some creators did it again with Tyrant Valvatores. Like, oh, and he was another watershed moment. Just, I don't think he was quite as bad as Roslin, but he was up there. He definitely was another moment. We lost a lot of players.
And how would you have compared those two moments for like how the community reacted to them?
Basically, because I think again it was a lot of it came down to content creators. I can't blame content creators for everything in the game because like not everyone's a sheep that follows what someone on the internet says, and I'm not saying people that do follow content creators are sheep. That's not what I meant by that, but some people do look to someone who they see as more experienced for, well, if you think I should summon for this character, then I'm going to summon for this character, you know?
And you're looking at from April going into May now. Whenever T-Val came out, whenever Tyrant Velvetoris came out was in May at the start.
Well, when Tyrant Velvetores came out, New Year Rosalind's banner was still live, so this
Hmm.
period in time was actually intermingled, okay? Because
Yeah.
I can remember people re-rolling and trying to get a re-roll account that had Tyrant Valve and New Year Rosalind, and I think that I'm going to call it wave one, we lost a lot of people on New Year Rosalind. The people who were on the tipping point of maybe possibly quitting on the content creation side, when it came to Tyrant Valvatores, they had a similar experience where they didn't get the unit they expected to get, and that pushed them over the edge and they quit. That's why I'm comparing those two periods, because what happened on the content creation side, I feel like it bled in to the player base, because not naming any names, because I'm not going to do that, there was some content creators who actively tried to get their viewers to follow them and not play this game, and follow them onto the next game that they decided to showcase on their channel. You know, does that make sense what I'm saying? So I feel like the diehards that were following a said content creator, when that content creator turns around and says, this game sucks, I don't think I'm going to play it anymore, I'm not saying you guys shouldn't play it, but I'm not going to cover it anymore and I'm not going to play it anymore. I seen those videos and so many people just started replying, yeah bro, you're right, I'm quitting too, blah blah blah.
And
So I feel like
you're saying that started happening around May then?
it started happening between April and May. I think New Year Roslin was the biggest one, and then when it happened with Tyrant Valvatores, I feel like it happened again almost to the same extent, but not quite. Danny, you know I've showed you behind the scenes. I've got YouTube analytics that kind of show drop off in viewership. Now, I know viewership for me doesn't necessarily correlate to players, but it does seem to track realistically with what we know with declining player numbers. And basically, the two big spikes I have with declining viewership comes after New Year Roslin and Tyrant Valvatores, and it's quite stark. The amount is actually quite stark. So I feel that those two were the big watershed moments for us losing, I want to say, non-experienced gacha players.
And what do you think about May itself? Because in May, I think we had Zeroken come out, we had Artina, Imagine Etnagate was still around. Do you remember Imagine Etnagate? Remember when that was still a thing?
It's coming back. It's coming back this month, Danny. It's coming back this month.
And we also had the Defenders of the Earth show up along with the Curtis event. And I think we had our first taste of Conquest as well that month, along with the Beauty event in Rainer. So what did you think of May for the content side of it? It didn't seem to be going too well on the community side. I know there was a bug,
We had
an episode
wait,
10
wait,
lock bug at the
wait,
time as well.
wait. We had conquest mode in May. I don't think we did.
Oh, we did. We had plenty Conquest in May.
In
Absolutely.
in May, I don't think it was that
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, go
Oh,
back and
because
check.
I
Go back and
completed it right.
check. Go back and check the news.
Right. Okay.
I was looking
Honestly,
at, I checked all these dates and events with the news to make sure I wasn't imagining things. So there was a Conquest Prenny event in May.
well, no. Well, to be honest, I mean, apart from Tyrant Valvatores, I don't remember May being a great month. And looking back at the month, I don't really think it was fantastic. I mean, we knew off the bat The thing is, it was really hard to get hyped for Defenders of the Earth and Girl Haro mid boss. Reason being, we knew those characters were going to become part of the general
The
pool.
general pool.
So
Yeah, that
yeah,
definitely has
so
impact.
any unit that I knew eventually that I was going to be able to summon on absolutely every banner, I was never particularly overly enthusiastic about. The only one out of those I really wanted was Giro Laharo, because I did go through a phase where I just want every Laharo I can get. I still do, but I'm not as single-mindedly focused on that anymore from playing JP, because I know that half of them I won't use.
See, I think what you said there is really important because I feel the same. I remember at the time I realized that the units that were being featured were units that would be very easily picked up later on, and I think that was pretty common knowledge throughout the player base. And I think with the community side, I think that contributed to a general malaise of reaction to players not being happy. They seen what was happening in game, and because the game wasn't on fire that month, it was very tepid, as it were, content wise. The decisions outside the game then sort of push some of the community away at that point. I think May is probably the pivotal month since release that we can point to a very obvious trend changing.
Well, one of the things that me and Gacha noticed back then was with regards to our character showcase videos, our character breakdown videos, we saw, like, and this is before the game had actually really started to decline as much as it did on us on YouTube for us. I mean, just to clear this up for the viewers in case they wonder what I'm talking about, I went from averaging maybe 5, 6, 7,000 views to I was lucky to get two. Do you know what I mean? That's the drop off that I'm talking about. Okay, but with regards to the Defender of the Earth summon, we both were lucky to hit over 500 views, and at that point, we said to each other, "It seems like if the character isn't super hype, people just don't care." You know, like on Dokkan, you could have a character like Videl, who's obviously not the main. You know a bit about Dragon Ball. Videl's not like the biggest character in Dragon Ball, but if a new
Yeah,
character comes out for her, people will still go and watch the showcase because they're interested in every new character that comes out in Dokkan. I don't feel like Disgaea's got that pull. People will go and watch videos about Laharo, Salvatore's units, and stuff like that. But are they going to go and watch a showcase video for the new Raspberry? I'm not so sure. So we found out very early that certain characters just don't generate hype, which when it comes to a gacha game, it's a bit weird. Like, why would you lead with that unit? You must know yourself. Like, I've
funny
experienced the
that
same.
you. It's funny that you actually mentioned about not watching, say, like a Raspearl showcase because who care about Raspearl showcase? But there is actually a difference here because in Japan and on the JP for the JP version, like they actually do have a long running webcast where they do preview upcoming stuff, and that's very regularly watched. And they'll put up all the content before it comes out. And it could be like a summer update, swimsuit characters, and characters like Raspearl, and there is an audience there for it because it's all brand new. Like they have no idea what's coming up, and I think Global suffers from a lack of mystery. Like you know exactly what's going to come up. You know which order that's going to come up. So like you're not going to get excited for things you know like a year in advance. It's really hard to manage expectations whenever they're that far out known.
Oh no, you're 100% right. I mean, again, I'm probably going to use Dokkan as an example a few times, but even Dokkan has that. Dokkan has this. It's about 4 to 6 months out from JP, but because the games are close enough, Global can still get Global first units. It only happens like once or twice a year, but because there's not this massive power creep, obviously the difference between our power level on Global Disgaea and Japanese Disgaea is massive, okay? So they cannot debut a unit on Global Disgaea because it would have to have JP stats so that it could later on be released in JP. But if they did that, that character would be overpowered for the next 12 to 18 months on Global. So we'll probably never ever get a Global exclusive or Global first character. And you do lose that little bit of excitement, that little bit of feeling that, oh, it's something that's special, it's just for us. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
agree. I
example. Yeah,
think
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like having the games so far apart does hurt just a little bit. To the point where, again, I don't know how many times I'm going to mention them in this video. I actually once said to Gacha, I think that people might disagree with this. When Disgaea launched, they should have just skipped the first 6 months and given special banners where you could pick up all those units and put them in the general pool, whatever. But instead of trying to rush content to catch up with a year and a half, just compress the first 6 months. Give people a big barrel load of stones as gifts or whatever for the content that they've missed, but basically make it so that you're not a year and a half apart, because a year and a half I feel is massive. Because even me and you have discussed this on a podcast before, Danny. For us to match up the seasons, the only shot that we've still got is Christmas. But even then, I've looked at it, to do that, unless they decide to unsync the way that events naturally occur, they will have to have free events in November and free events in December, just so that we can get Christmas at Christmas time. So if I was a betting man, I would say they're either going to change the schedule or we're not going to get Christmas at Christmas time again, which means that if you actually look at it, we're still at least a year and 3-4 months away from JP. So even all their acceleration to try and catch up, we haven't really caught up at all. We haven't cut down on any of that time they tried to gain by going so fast at the start.
Yeah, but there's always a chance now. Now they've got, like, I think getting to Overlord Saki was a big milestone because of the version differences. Because now they are quite close to the Japanese version. Like, there's a huge amount of content differences that they no longer have to worry about. That's already in the client. And I think, given that situation, I think we can only see improvements to their ability to not have to worry about translating the content and making it ready for global, because you have to understand, like, it's not always easy of just reactivating old game code, just changing a few Japanese words to English, just throwing it out the door. You know what I mean? It's never that simple. And anything that can anything that can improve that process and cut down on the differences between what the original game from JP is and what they have to prepare for us, the better. And it also gives them more room then to add more stuff, because as you've seen, like, they are adding more global exclusive content and other regions exclusive content. They're still doing that, and I think I want to see more of that, because why not? Like, we deserve some exclusive stuff. I'm holding out, by the way, as we're going through this list here and seeing how global has been the past 6 months. I'm holding out for the possibility that in future we'll get a global exclusive unit, or get a unit that debuts on global first. Either way, I'd love to see that. I think that would be a very, very important milestone if we could ever actually reach it. What do you think?
Danny, I would love it, but like I just said there, I just don't think it's possible. It's like,
No, if
it's
they're
like
on
the
the same
buff.
game version, like, think about it, if they're on the same game version, they don't have to worry about mechanics and stuff. Like, there's nothing stopping them from debuting a unit first on global at that point. If it's simply just the data, they can insert like a unit exclusively into global. Not a problem, I don't think. Well, not a problem, but less hassle.
The only way that they could do that, and I believe that this has happened before with, I think it was Final Fantasy, that there's a Final Fantasy game. The only way they could possibly do that is they would have to release the unit first on global, okay, with the type of stats that global characters have now, right? And then when they release that character on JP, say that character's released on JP 2-3 months later or something like that, it would be released with buff stats, because the stats of global characters versus JP characters are night and day, right? And then there would come a point where that character would then get buffed on global when the power creep happens, because the power creep is real. Let's be honest, it is completely real. It's not just a thing that people band about. Like, my current global box, I have every single unit that's on global, and on JP right now, I probably wouldn't use any of them. I'd maybe use Kildare for a boss killer on raids, but other than that, none of those characters would get near my squad, because the characters on JP are just night and day. They're so much better. So if they released a global exclusive character, it would have to match up to what the characters are like on JP, because if they ever plan to release that character on JP, it has to be good enough that the Japanese player base would want to summon for them, and they're used to a completely different calibre of character. So, like I say, the only way they could do a global exclusive would be if it was a true global exclusive, as in they never plan to release it on JP. Then it's fine, they can release it at current global stats and they don't have to worry about it. But obviously, if the plan would be to later on, maybe 2-3 months later, release it on JP, the stats would have to be in line, or sorry, the stats, the skills, the abilities, all that type of stuff, they would have to be in line with what JP players expect to summon for.
I'm not too picky when it comes to like what unit is or what role that unit has to play. If it ends up being a global exclusive unit, I honestly think that because of the lack of linear though in our version of the game, if we can't get her, obviously she's a mascot character, so people want her for being a mascot. Now, if we ultimately can't for whatever reasons that there may be, what's wrong with giving us like our global mascot character? Like, just give us just anything, just a unique unit to represent like this is our version of the game, and this is our mascot essentially. If we can't get the one we want, then give us something else. It doesn't have to be like a unit that's powerful and it's going to change the Japanese meta. Just symbolic. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, they had the opportunity to do that already, and I just don't know if they can. The reason I say that is because let's look at the art competition they most recently done, the design a badass character, remember? Zalex done the Fuka. Remember that Fuka that he done the art design? It was like a really really cool looking Fuka.
Yeah.
And she could have. He was given permission. You can use this. He wasn't even going to charge them. You can use this and create a character in game. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We can't do that. I mean, he literally was offering them a character design for free. And they said no, we can't do it. So I don't know. I just feel like it's not in Bolt Trend's wheelhouse in their contract, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think they have the scope, or maybe I don't know if it's the scope, the skills, the developers. I don't know what it is, but I just don't think they have the either ability or the rights to add something to the game that's not like in JP. And I mean fundamental things, not things like battle passes and puzzles. I'm talking about something in the actual core of the game. I don't know if they're allowed to add another character because, like I say, they had the ability to. Here's a brilliant design if you want to do this global exclusive. Fuka, here she is, and no, we can't do it. So I
Well,
don't know.
well,
I just
I would say if that's the position, then fair enough. Then we should be petitioning Forwardworks for a solution because if Bullet Rand can't argue it from their own perspective, then I think it's fair to argue it from a core game perspective. If certain characters are going to be regionally protected or exclusive, like it's only fair from a core game solution that we get a response to that, rather than
sure.
giving Bullet Rand the responsibility. Because if they're being shackled by decisions outside of their control, I'm sure Bullet Rand would be happy to give out Linear if they could.
Uh,
But
yeah, I mean, I think we should petition them to get a global exclusive Hayzink character added to the game. I'd be into that.
yeah, hazing card. What kind of evil deeds? What kind of evil deeds would hazing have in the game?
All bald characters get 100% boost to stats.
And slower speed as well, just a debuff to compensate. You know what I mean? Just to make it fair, has to be balanced after all.
What? Yes. No, but like I don't know, Danny. I'm not holding my breath for it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a pipe dream. But speaking of pipe dreams, we'll move into June here, and we're going to look at Rosalind again. But this time it's the awakened Rosalind that came in as the headline badass of June. Now that was our second go around on the badass merry-go-round. So how did that go? Was there a T-Val drop off? Was there a big negative reaction?
Um, no, because we all got a bunch of money back. Like, I mean, I got her for free. My summons were basically given for free because they messed up the rates on the banner. I made a video like pointing it out and letting everyone know that this isn't right. And like, whether you agree with the situation or not, fundamentally, if you have banner display issues, whether they be positive or negative, it doesn't matter. If the rates that are displayed on a banner are incorrect, then you are entitled to your money back. That is just a fact of gacha games. And I think rates are one of the things that fundamentally you cannot get away with. Because obviously later on we had a display issue with Raspberry where she was displayed as a physical monster and she was actually a magical monster. But you could click in the other screen and see that she was a magical monster. With regards to Awakened Rosalind, however, her rates were all you could see. There was no like secondary place where you could see her real rates. So we all got our quartz back, and that in itself caused an issue because obviously players who weren't awake at that time and didn't do their summons felt like we all got something that they should have got, and it wasn't fair. So that actually did create a bit of an issue, a bit of a divide, because there was players that felt, oh, I've missed out here, I don't want to play this game anymore.
And you think the Waken Rosin, everyone was just happier because of the refunds and able to re-roll, and most people who wanted to get her, do you think there was that kind of situation, or?
Just not most people. Just there was a certain extent of people who obviously got that. A lot of other people I know went quite deep. There was a guy on my Discord. Honestly, he'll get upset at me just now, but Laddie, I think's his name. Laddie PPK and or PKK something. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, buddy. But he went something like 92k quartz and he never got her.
Holy crap, really?
Yeah, he went like 92k quartz and he never actually got her at all. That's the thing about those badass banners. They can be feast or famine. Sometimes you can do extremely well on them because of the increased rates to 3 and 4 stars.
Roslyn, we had the Rasperl event, and we also had Pure Flan coming into the game. So what was it like, do you think, to get some variety in the character gates? I know people were getting a bit dry with Etna at the time. So what do you think of the free to play offerings with the gates? Do you think that they've been a consistent free to play option up until June, up till the first few months?
I mean, they can be quite hard. The problem is you call them a free to play option, but they can be quite hard for free to play players to get. The thing about these gates is the people who could benefit most from these characters struggle most to get these characters because they don't have a big box, they don't have the units that get the geo boosts and stuff like that, so they can find it quite hard to beat the harder gate, and they need to rely on RNG to get that lower gate. Whereas people like myself who can beat those gates quite easily, they bench a lot of these characters and they never actually use them. So it's actually quite a weird situation. Pure Flawn is someone who I did end up putting on my Magical Girls team, but like to be honest with you, when you look at the later characters that start to appear, I can unlock them quite easily. Will I use them? Probably not.
I remember June in particular being a very slow month. I think we had we had the Reflection event at the time. Um, we have some controversy with the event points. We can return to that. But in terms of content, we had the New Year's event. We had the player appreciation where the emoji printies. And I think we finished that month out with Easter, because that's how you finish June.
Yeah,
A
that
good strong Easter campaign.
the thing about that month is it was a lot of banners, but not a lot of actual playable content.
Mm. Because I remember waiting throughout June, waiting for I think it was the Pure Sicily that was coming up content wise. So I was just waiting that month for the month to get over so the next month could happen.
Yeah, well, that month I was actually waiting because I knew that we were going to have the change to the platinum summon banners, where every 3 or every 5 steps you were guaranteed to get one of the units, and I knew it was probably going to be my best chance to build up a stock of what do you call her? Oh, what's her name again? How can I forget her name? Prinny girl. Usalia. It was going to be my best chance to pick up Usalia because obviously every
Yeah.
5 steps you were guaranteed to get a premium, a platinum summon unit. That was the biggest thing for me that month. I quite liked that something was changing with regards to the summoning side of things, and I felt like we were getting a step closer to having a kind of pity system. Yes, it wasn't pity, but it was better than what we'd had up to that point. So that was a big thing for me. I was quite keen on that.
Yeah. At the same time, like the community was quite a buzz with the event points. Do you remember the event points going up and down, and they were changing their mind about what they were going to do with them and how much they were going to be? But they restored them in June back to 30%.
I'll say this now, Danny. I don't know if you remember. I think it was the first podcast I was on. It was. I used the term tearing off the band-aid. I feel like they made a mistake there. I still stand by. I feel like they made a mistake there because most likely, looking at the data files, most likely for the Seven Deadly Sins banner, we're going to lose that 30% flat boost because I said to you, people can go back and watch Danny's second Makai Sentai podcast because I was on the second episode. It was my first appearance, I believe, and I said
That was
back
the last
then.
episode, the last numbered episode from this one. This is episode 3, so that'll be episode 2.
Yep. So if you go back and watch that video, I said during that time when Disgaea adds the any levels affecting your points, I believe they'll take away the flat boost. Now, from what we've been able to see from the data files, it looks like that's what's going to happen with the Seven Deadly Sins, because that's when that will be introduced, any levels affecting your points, and it looks like they're about to go back. So when that happens, it's going to have been almost 7 months where you've had this 30% flat boost. So when that gets taken,
Yeah, I've noticed for the summer event, it's definitely not in like there's no difference on your any levels, and it's a flat 30%
yep.
still. Because I did check it, I was wondering like,
Oh, yep.
is this the event that they turn it back? And no, it's still fine for this event for the summer event. It just hit as of the
Yeah.
time of recording.
But for the Seven Deadly Sins, it's definitely in the files that it's going to change. So I mean, they could back out on that. It's not. It wouldn't be unlike Bulk Trend to flip flop and change their mind. However, if they do go ahead with it, I just feel that the player base are going to feel like they've been screwed over. And the worst part for me was in June. People had almost come to terms with, okay, we've lost this, we're not going to have 30% from now on with all of our characters, and they'd started to get used to it, and about a week later Bulk Trend responded and they said, okay, we're going to change it going forward, you're back to having a 30%
Yeah.
flat boost. I feel like they had already kind of ridden the storm, so to speak, and people were starting to get used to it. And now we're going to have to repeat that process and go all through it all over again. So I stand by what I said. I feel like I understand why people were happy that they kept the 30% boost. I was happy, but knowing that it would eventually change, I just feel like it was delaying the inevitable. And if it happens on the 14th, I think we're going to go through a whole round two of people being upset.
Well, I have a wee theory about this. I know we're breaking into current affairs discussing this, but I do have a wee theory behind that. Do you remember how the Seven Deadly Sins event got rerun in Japan on the JP version? Well, I think whenever they did that, that was like a good time for them to renew the license, so they secured it for global as well. And I think during that renewing of the license, they probably made sure that all the details of the event like were already like sold and set in stone. So the fact that they're changing it for this event kind of makes sense because it may have been part of like the contract details whenever like they arranged the license and
Yeah,
get the whole thing set up behind the scenes. So
yeah.
that, like, it makes sense if they have to change it, that this would be the time that they have to change it.
Well, the thing is that is a running theory that people feel like the reason that JP had the rerun is because they had to renew the license for global. We'll be able to kind of guess that a bit better and confirm that a bit better when RE0 comes around. Because if JP suddenly run a rerun of RE0 a month before global gets its event, I think then that pretty much validates that the reason that JP got a rerun is because they got the license for global. Now that does worry me slightly because that would mean for global to get a rerun they would have to renew the license again. So that's why in a few of my videos I've said, look, I do expect the characters to get buffed, but if they don't, licensing can be a big thing. We don't know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I've only put that caveat out there not to worry people, but it's just if the traditional Chinese version gets it, that you have to imagine that's another renewal, and then if Global gets the rerun in a year time, it's going to be another renewal. So what's going to happen is JP going to rerun it again and put another badass unit on just so that they've got a reason to rerun it.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to
Exactly. Who knows?
we need to wait and see. I do think there is a small chance, just a small outside chance, that Global doesn't get the rerun, but they do get the stat buff, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So they just buff the
it
characters
does.
without the event. But we'll need to wait and see. We're talking a year away.
Yeah, so they bring it back to our time traveling antics here. We're going into July. I think July was a big month, content wise. There was a lot going on in July. We had our 3 summer events. We had our raid beta. I believe it was a raid beta. We had our Magical Cuties event. Big heavy hitters with Pure Cecily, Dark Artina, that kind of thing. But we also had some server issues. People are having login issues prolonged over a period of time. And it's also the month where another badass hit. I like it whenever we have month of a badass hitting each month. That was a good trend that wouldn't continue past July, unfortunately. But for July we had Killadelia, didn't we?
Caladia, yeah, we did. I mean, July was a bit of a funny month because we didn't actually get the Desco beta. We were supposed to get the Desco beta, but what they did was they released the first Desco raid by mistake. And then they also messed up the announcement telling everybody that the abilities, the geo boosts, were the ones from the beta, which was going to be magic, sword, and axe, I believe. And it turned out it was fist, bow, and something else, which was actually the Desco Raid 1. The level cap was too high for 90% of the player base, apart from the cheaters, and that was actually their first misstep of the month. They released the wrong raid.
So what? Okay, let me get this straight. They announced the beta raid as everyone was expecting. The beta was supposed to come before the full raid, and the beta raid we got the announcement, all the details, and what happened was instead of the beta raid, which the details were there for, we actually got the first raid, so the details didn't match up. But the first raid was accurately the first raid, the way you would have expected it to be. So we got that, and we didn't get the beta.
That's correct. We're actually missing. We're missing. Technically, we're missing two raids right now, but we are missing that beta raid, and we'll probably never get that beta raid. That beta raid didn't have a wheel or anything like that. It had an exchange shop, where you could get like special weapons and stuff like that. The weapons weren't very good, but they had good innocence attached to them, which could actually be quite useful for accounts. And we should have had the Desco raid 2 before the Seven Deadly Sins. Obviously, that was cancelled. I think it was this month it was supposed to be out, but it was cancelled. And now we're going to have the Diane raid on the 20th. And after that, they're either going to slot in the Desco raid and give it to us, or they're just going to skip it right away. It'll be Mal, and then it'll be Desco raid number 3. So I really don't know how they're going to catch up on the raids, but no matter what, I don't see them going back now and giving us the beta raid. So Global is forever going to be missing one raid over GP.
We did start rating in July, at least.
Yeah,
We started the rating in July. That's the important bit. You know, we actually started rating, and we wanted to do that, and we kicked Desco's ass, kinda,
We did.
right?
They kind of messed up that as well. For they were going to do it better this month if we got the raid, because if you remember right, they launched the raid while there was no event running. So to
Hmm.
generate the raid boss was difficult because you were having to play content you had maybe already completed. Whereas this month they were going to do it properly, where the raid was going to launch alongside the new event, so that while you were grinding the story, you would be generating the raid boss, and that's naturally how you do it in JP. Raids always launch alongside a new event, so that you've got a reason to naturally generate the raid boss. But for the first raid that they didn't do that. They didn't release it alongside an event, which was rather annoying.
So, what did you think of the badass for the month? Actually, I secured it. I was happy. I got the badass I wanted that month, and that set me happy. I got my pure Sicily, got my badass, but I really wasn't interested in doing the raid that much. I find it very hard to try and keep up with the raid points. I kind of struggled a bit
You
because I
weren't
wasn't able to
you weren't
get the
taking
raid chain going.
Yeah, you weren't taking it. You hadn't joined. I don't think you had joined my server properly at that point. We didn't really have that problem because on my server we very quickly established a channel for raids. We would add each other as friends. We would find a level that everyone could beat. We would send out a raid. We would ping everyone. Boss is live. You'd kill the boss. Next person would generate a boss. Ping on Discord, boss is live, you would kill the boss. And between us, we just absolutely washed raids and we got all the points. Yeah, we weren't going to rank, but we were never trying to rank, we were just trying to
Yeah,
rinse
you're just trying to
all
get
the
your
reward.
points. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get through, get the boxes open. So we essentially created our own co-op via my Discord. We created our own co-op mode within that Disgaea RPG because we were coordinating with each other, and it might sound like it was a big hands-on thing. It wasn't. It was literally just raid up. That's that. You just type raid up, and then people would go bang, kill the raid boss. And we had a little rule where if you went into the boss, wait 10 seconds before you attack. That way, as many people as possible could get into that boss, and everyone would earn points. Because in raid, even if you don't do any damage at all, you can literally enter a boss, quit that boss without touching him, and you'll get points for contributing towards that raid. So that's basically what we done.
I have to try that. I have to try that
Well,
next time.
you're in my server now, Danny, so you can easily slot into that. It's quite a good thing to do.
So another very notable launch in July was the Battle Pass. That definitely caused a wee stir in the community when it went up. How do you think of the debut of the Battle Pass?
I think the battle pass was good. I've said from the word go, like I think the battle pass was possibly too skewed towards free to play players. Let me just spell out what I mean by that. Obviously, to keep the lights on, to keep this guy running, we need Bolt Trend to make money. Okay, plain and simple. If we want to keep playing this game, Bolt Trend have to have money. That's it, right? And I feel like they should make the offering on the paid side almost irresistible, right? And I feel like what they did was they made the free to play side amazing. Giving you a free copy of Visalia was fantastic, decent amount of quartz, some free printy hides and stuff like that. And while they did give you a decent amount of crystals on the paid side, there was nothing that was compelling there that could make you say, "Wow, I have to buy this," you know. And for me
Yeah.
personally, I feel like, please don't come after me, people listening to this video. I feel like Usalia should have been on the paid side, but that's just my opinion. Because, like I say, for a small purchase that can keep the game running, having an in-demand character being on the paid side of a battle pass, to me seems like a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
they decide to make the paid side a little bit underwhelming versus the free side. The free side was fantastic. I just feel like the paid side didn't live up to how fantastic the free side was, if that makes sense.
Hmm. So as we move into August here, how was the community looking at the start of August? Like what you were saying, there was some turmoil with T-Val, and then there was a bit of normalization in June and July. So how was the community looking in August?
Was August not like the driest month that we had? I can't
Yeah,
remember, but
we haven't started in the August. Yeah, August we had some maintenance. We had the Overlord's Tower being put in, expanded. We had the community choice banners in particular that caused a little bit of a flurry, particularly with Asalia grabbing feature attention. I was very happy to see that banner.
yeah, I just feel like August was like there was nothing to do all month, and then it was like there was something at the end of the month, and I feel like I feel like the end of July, start of August, and throughout August was when we started to, although we had it in June as well, was when we really started to feel the pinch of dry spells. That's what I'm going to call them, dry spells. And
Yeah.
ultimately, we've spoken before about player retention and losing players when the New Year Roslyn banner happened and the Tyrant Valvatores banner happened. Ultimately, I think the thing that drove away more players, more long-term players than anything, was content droughts. I seen a lot of players who were very active in the Discord, active on my videos, active in my Discord, that they just vanished. They just vanished, and the only thing that like naturally could have caused that was the dry spells, because there was no banners, there was nothing like major that you could have pointed to, like, oh, a new hype unit's come out, these people have tried to summon. And from speaking to people and from getting a feel for the community, the thing that seems to have affected more long-term players than anything else would be the spells where there's just nothing to do in game. For new players, it's not a big deal because you've obviously got everything to do. But people who have been playing this game since day one are pretty much caught up on content, and they're always just waiting for the next thing to release and waiting for the next thing to release. And when you can potentially go 3 weeks with nothing to do, it seemed to hurt quite a lot. And I feel like August was a month that we really felt that.
Yeah, for sure. August was felt tight. I remember waiting through August. Like we had the sports academy event,
Yeah.
but what was really actually the one thing I really liked in August was the event review. We got the event review added unexpectedly. They were testing it out, and they just sort of tucked it in there. I've been very appreciative of that, just as someone who has the event units, and I wanted to get them all the way up to NE7. And I know some of the new players that have been playing since then have been able to pick up some units that they obviously weren't around for. So that was a nice wee surprise.
Yeah, I mean, event. Don't get me
And
wrong, event review, and I think they added a few conquests in August. They were unexpected because I can remember making a video called "Unexpected Content Drops" because it wasn't on the roadmap.
yeah,
It just showed up and no one knew it was going to be there.
yeah.
They were the only things that kept us going. Unfortunately, this is a first world problem kind of thing. If you were a player like me, you bet that content in like 25 minutes, and you had nothing to do. Do you know what I mean? The event review took slightly longer. It took a day to figure out the strategy to three-star the Azura Gates. Is that how you pronounce it? Azura Gates.
Yeah,
Um,
a
it,
surrogate. Yeah.
yeah, it took like a day to figure out the strat for that, but once I figured that out, it was plain sailing and that was it done. So while it was nice to get that content, for me, the thing that keeps me on the hook in Disgaea is grindable content. So things like the story events where you can go in and clean out a shop, get all the materials in that shop and stuff. That to me feels like this is going to sound so bad. It gives me purpose in the game, whereas
Yeah.
these one-off pieces of content they just don't keep me on the hook, and I think that's the same for a lot of players.
Well, there's two other things that need to be mentioned this month for August, and that was the puzzle hunt. Do you remember the puzzle hunt?
I remember the
That
puzzle
was
hunt.
um, that was an interesting experiment, and also as well, it was also the month that we had the AMA. Bolt Rand released a quite lengthy AMA to some pressing issues that were being kicked up.
Well, let me just say, you called the puzzle mode an experiment. Just to be clear, the puzzle mode is coming back. It's just not out this month because they're not allowed to put Seven Deadly Sins characters on it. So expect the puzzle mode to be back in November. That's a bit of an exclusive for you guys. Um, but that mode to me, while it was okay, I've spoke about this at length. I feel like hiding characters behind tiles and stuff like that was a mistake because if all the characters were known from the get go, then people may have decided to summon for those gym girls because they could have literally not needed any of the other seven characters. It was just the two gym girls, and that could have been enough for them to decide, you know what, I'm going to summon. Because I had all the units, so I knew that if I got the two gym girls, I'd be fine. But then there's people like you, Danny, who I think towards the end you were just chasing one character.
Yeah, I lost out. I got every single target except for Zerokin. And that fecker eluded me the entire time, and I couldn't finish it. I already had Awakened Rosalind, so getting a level 2000 copy of her wasn't going to do me any big news, you know what I mean? But I wanted it because I had every other one on the board, so I wanted to try and finish it out, and I pulled for Zerokin, and I didn't get him. So I was very unhappy, really, having one character away from finishing something. I'm a min-maxy sort of collector sometimes, and that really pushes my buttons whenever I miss out because of one tiny thing
Yep.
with my bad luck.
No,
So,
I can feel that.
but no, you're absolutely right. August was marked particularly just by a lack of things to do, and then suddenly a wealth of things to do towards the end of it. It was a very unbalanced month, and I think what you're saying about the player base deciding to get a bit bored and move on because they were expecting more stuff to happen and it just didn't. I think that's something that's you seeing yourself in your views and your
Oh yeah.
viewpoints that they were trending downwards.
Yep.
They just continue downwards throughout the month.
Yeah, they announced a Sagi a month early basically because they had no content, and they're like, well, if we announce a Sagi a month early, it might keep people on the hook, you know, and that's essentially what
Did
they
it
did.
work? Did it work? Did it work? I remember I was excited whenever they announced it early. I was like, holy hell. And at the same time, during August when they announced what was coming, they also gave a preview of the new features. Like it was a closer new game version to the JP version with the chess piece features, for example. Like that got people really excited as well because of the quality of life improvements that they knew would be coming with it.
No, it definitely did. You're right.
So then we're into September now. September is, for me at least, it was my most look forward to month. I was hoping to see a Sagi at some point, maybe earlier in the year, but September is when a Sagi decided to hit, and along with the big game update, with a lot of the quality of life features and some content, actually, a surprising amount of content. So where do we want to start in September?
September was such a weird month for me, Danny, to be honest. Like, I was hugely looking forward to September. I mean, and then the thing, like, September just turned into the month from hell for me. So I kind of went from, like, going into it, like, oh, really hype, and then through personal stuff for me and other things that we're probably going to talk about, it just turned into an absolute horrible month. So I'll start off by talking about the bad things, right? Which is going to be the pity. The thing that basically came
Yeah.
up, I came across it on screenshots on the main cord, and like no one seemed to be talking about it. Like no one seemed to care, and I was like, wait, I don't think people quite understand the ramifications of this, and I took it upon myself, like, I spoke in my own Discord about it, and those people were paying attention to what it was, and they're like, no, this isn't right, and I didn't feel like it was right, and I felt like, as the most visual person that makes content for Disgaea, I felt like I had a responsibility that, you know what, I have to let people know about this, I have to speak about this, and I have to let people know that they should make a noise, they should kick up a stink, and they should go and let their voices be heard, and I feel like not only me, I'm not saying only me, I mean, not many other content creators apart from Zacho made it a video even talking about it. I think it was literally just me and Zacho that made a video talking about it. But he made it for the Spanish community after I made it for the English community, which I'm glad that he done. And obviously, I tried to tell people do it in the right way. Now I've seen things going wrong in games before, and content creators go to the Play Store, review bomb them, give them 1-star reviews. I'm not that type of person, Danny. I would rather people went and acted like adults and said, "Look, we give you money. If you don't fix this, we're not going to give you money." That works. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to affect a company's bottom line, that works. And I feel like the community responded well to the pity situation. They didn't throw their toys out the
Yeah.
pram. They let their voices be heard, and I feel like most of them did it in a way that worked, because let's be honest, this happened in September and we are getting pity added in October, a month later. So people might turn around and say, oh well, it didn't make a big difference. I don't know, we went from no pity at all at the start of September to on the 14th of October we're going to have pity implemented. Do I feel like we as a community had a big impact on that shift? You're damn right I do. And hopefully, like me pointing that out to players and getting players on board, if I walk away from Disgaea today and I know that I had at least a part to play in getting pity added earlier for Global, I'll be happy with that.
I remember on that morning, someone asked me to check the CN version, and I loaded it up. I posted a screenshot of, I think it was a T-Val banner that was up.
No, it was the Dark Santa
I
Lahara.
put Dark Santa the Harl
Yep.
was. I remember just seeing the rates on it. It was like, okay, just put it up, and I seen like this extra feature up at the top. Like, well, what's this? I was like, is that I don't wonder what happens when I pull on this. Oh, I do get an extra currency. Oh, that is a special shop. Is that pity? And it exploded really quickly. Like people noticed it like instantly, and people were asking for more screenshots, and someone else provided all no the full details for the banner for the different rates on it. And I'm happy that whenever it blew up, that you were able to ensure from your community that they were able to respond and be directed into the right feedback channels to ensure that the message was appropriately surfaced to the devs and given a chance for each individual person there to give their take on it, because there's a lot of different takes
Oh yeah.
and opinions on how they thought about the situation as it was in the moment. And I'm glad that folks were able to express themselves for the most part with a level of respect. Obviously, there was a few elements that decided to throw their toys out of the pram. Let's just be honest about
Oh
it.
yeah.
And to be honest, like there's no room in the conversation for people that do that. Like, I'm sorry, we're all adults and we're
Oh
playing the
yeah.
game here, and we all know what that's like. So like, no one has a unique perspective of being really angry and emotional about the situation.
Yep.
It's a case of it's not nice, but we want to get it fixed, but you want to make sure that you're able to deliver that message. And I did appreciate you taking charge and taking responsibility of how that message was delivered. So, and I think the results spoke for themselves. They issued out a response letter, which is not something they usually do, but they gave a big chunky response, particularly addressing pity, giving us commitments to dates, giving us an explanation from their side about how they were seeing it and why the situation arose. So I really did appreciate that level of response. I'm not sure we should expect that level of response to every single issue that pops up in future,
Oh yeah.
but I'm glad at least for something as important as pity. Like we've been discussing this timeline here, pity's been an issue since day one,
Uh-huh.
before day one, if we listen to the beta players. So like it's really critical for the business side of this game for them to get it right, to make players happy, and to basically just let us enjoy the game instead of thinking about pity. I don't want to think about pity when I'm playing. I just want to play it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I don't want to think about these stupid things. I just want to enjoy the game and talk to other people who are enjoying the game and see how they did.
100%.
So it's really important that we just put this shit to bed. And I think there was a lot of movement and progress made in September around all the different things that were happening in the game, outside of the game. And I think it's fair to say that Bull Trend, as up and down as they have been with their decisions and the mistakes and not mistakes that they've made, I think it's fair to say that I was happy to see the reaction and to see the expediency. Like they weren't just throwing some words there to keep us happy or throwing out codes to shut us up.
Yep.
They were saying, okay, here's what happened, here's a timeline, here's a date, here's a commitment. And I don't think you should expect better than that, you know, because that's what you want. You want no bullshit, you want dates, and then you want to see a follow through.
Yep.
And if anything September taught us is that I think Bolt Run can be trusted if we tell them here's an issue, we need it addressed right now, they will do it. If push comes to shove, like you said, if their bottom line is under threat, then they won't fail to act. And I think that's very important to understand that people are saying, oh, Botran are evil, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I think, no, at the end of the day, they just want the game to do well and to succeed as much as we do. They don't have any ulterior motives. They just want to be happy and make sure that we're happy, because when we're happy, their numbers go up. When their numbers go up, they're happy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's literally a mutual relationship. It doesn't do anyone any well if we sit there and just take an opportunity just to shit on them, to throw our toys out of the pram. Essentially, it just doesn't work.
Yep. I agree.
And I'll give an example, by the way, just because it came up in the news. You know, Genshin Impact. There was some kind of anniversary update, and the players' response to that was to review bomb other games.
Mate, I still can't. Honestly,
other games,
yeah.
other per games,
Yeah,
getting the shit thrown at them because of Genshin. My God,
I don't get that response. I really don't. I don't. The thing is, but after the whole pity thing happened, obviously the pity thing happened quite close to Asagi. Then we had that massive maintenance when the game was like in maintenance for ages. It came back up, then it went back down into maintenance again, and it was like, oh my god, what is going on here? And then we got our summons for Asagi, and that was literally the night that I got rushed into hospital. Like, I remember I made the video earlier in the day, and I was saying to people in the video, if you go back and watch the video, I commented on it. I'm like, I'm feeling really bad, guys, but I'm going to go ahead and make this video and like finish out the video and stuff like that. And then that night, I got like rushed into hospital, and I was like, oh my god, like I was so frustrated because there was so much content I wanted to make for everything that had happened, all the new stuff that had dropped. And you'll know, Danny, because I spoke to you privately after I came out of hospital. I was like, I feel like I want to go back and cover all that stuff, but it's past now, so I don't want to go back and cover stuff that happened while I was in hospital. So I just feel like up to that point, I had everything documented on my channel, like everything that had happened in the game. You could go to my channel and it's like an encyclopedia. You could find that moment in the game, but basically that one and a half week period after Asagi dropped, there's just nothing on my channel for that period, and it's annoying. It's really annoying. It bugs me.
yeah, for sure. But like I said, you were recording a video that day instead of maybe taking an earlier trip to the hospital and taking
Well,
care of
to
yourself.
be
So you were
honest, I
you were
didn't.
definitely not thinking of your own benefit there.
Well, I
Not the
did
wisest of choices. You know, in retrospect, you should
not.
have gotten to the hospital
No,
early.
no. See, to be honest, when I recorded the video, I didn't feel that bad. Like I felt sore, right? I felt pain, and like I was like, right, okay. And then that night, Rangers were playing in Europe. People who don't know, Rangers are a Scottish football team. I was watching the Rangers game. The Rangers game finished at 9:30. Rangers lost. I think we were playing Leon that night, and then I just started to like feel my chest pounding. I was pouring sweat, and Julie walked into the room and she's like, "You don't look good." And I went, "I don't feel good." And she's like, "I want to phone an ambulance." And I went, "No, we'll phone 111." And I was like, "I don't think this is. I don't want to bother the ambulance service. Just being a typical man, do you know what I mean?" And she's like,
Yep,
"No,
yep, yep.
I think you're having a heart attack or something." I was like, "No, no, 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 no." She phoned 999. They're like, "You need to get to hospital immediately." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Unfortunately, there's issues with ambulances at the moment. It'll be between 2 and 6 hours for an ambulance to get you. So can your wife get you to hospital faster?" And she just went and got her mum, brought her mum down, sat with the kids, and she just immediately took me to hospital. And they're like, "Yeah, you're staying in. You've got suspected sepsis, which for people who don't know is blood poisoning." And I'm like, "Oh, great." So then basically I had to have like 2 surgeries and stuff like that. And I'm still, as I'm recording this with you right now, Danny, as you know, because we talk, I'm lying in bed
Yeah.
right now and I'm still recovering from the surgeries.
You're still I do appreciate you taking the time to record this during your recovery. I can't imagine like the amount of different stuff that you were describing to me to be pleasant in any way. And I imagine that it might take more than just a few days to get over it and to recover. Like I don't think you're gonna be jollying down to the shops in a tech anytime soon.
I don't want to throw you off track or anything like that because I know you're probably going to speak about this, but one of the worst things about that whole hospital stay actually was after I'd had my surgery, I got moved to a ward and it was really depressing because I wasn't allowed any visitors or anything like that. And finally, after a few days, they said, "Look, we think you're going to need to go for a second surgery, so we're going to move you across to another ward," which meant I was able to see my kids and I was able to see my wife because we were allowed visitors. And I was really, really happy. And I got moved back over to this ward at like 6 o'clock at night. I was so happy. I felt, "Oh, this is so good. I'm going to feel a lot better." And then I was sitting watching something on Netflix, and bang, at 10 o'clock, I got a message saying Hayzink Gachas passed away. And I was like, just the feeling of sitting in hospital by myself and like I'd nobody there to talk to or anything like that. And I was already down, but just to get that happening while I was feeling unwell myself, it was absolutely gutting. And Gacha meant a lot to me, and I think he meant a lot to this game. And I think what a lot of people don't know is like Gacha was like my rock when it came to making content for this game. Any frustrations I had or any frustrations he had, we could share with each other, and it's probably the reason the both of us stayed making content for Disgaea. And it was a huge loss for me, and I feel like it was a huge loss for the community as well. But for that to happen at the exact same time was just like an absolute kick in the balls for me.
Yeah, I can't imagine how you would have taken that sort of situation yourself, because obviously you're trying to take care of yourself and think about your own immediate situation, and to receive that kind of news whenever you're feeling helpless. You know what I mean? You're in a situation where you can't really get out of it and you can't really react to it in a normal kind of way, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would have been a good place for you.
Well, I think the thing for me was it made me kind of. This is going to sound really morbid. It made me question my own mortality because, like, I'm older than Gacha, which I mean, Gacha was only 26, which is just horrific. I'm coming up for 40, do you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
like, I didn't necessarily fathom exactly how bad it was for me. Like, I mean, I've subsequently been told that I could have died. Like, and if they hadn't found the infection site when they found the infection site, which was 2 days after I found out about Gacha, I was just going to continue to get worse. And if I continued to get much worse, my body goes into septic shock and it starts to shut down, and that's how people die. Um, and at that point, when I heard that, I was like, I didn't want to feel sorry for myself. People kept asking me how I was. I knew I was quite serious, but I kept playing it down because I'm like, people have just heard about Gacha. I don't want to tell people that I'm really fucking sick. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sitting here, I'm worried about how I react to it, how should I be making videos sitting in hospital to let people know how much I cared about gacha and stuff? Because I did. Like, he wasn't just someone I made Disgaea content with. I've said this so many times. Gacha actually reached out to me when I started doing Dokkan content, and he had 126 subscribers, and I had 223 subscribers. Like, we were both really, really small, and we just started
Yeah.
talking. We were like, we're in a similar situation, and he just started messaging me each day, and I started messaging him back, and we were just shooting the shit. Do you know what I mean? Just like two completely different people, but we shared a lot of common interests, but a lot of not common interests, if that makes sense. But we just gelled really well, and it was a total coincidence that we were talking one day and I just happened to mention that I really like Disgaea, and he's like, oh, I love Disgaea, there's a gacha game that's out in JP, I heard that it might be getting a global release, and I was like, well, I'm going to cover that, and he's like, I think I'm going to cover that too. And at the start we had this wee sort of a semi friendly rivalry going on. Like Gacha at one point had like on his Disgaea channel had like 1,000 subs more than me, and he liked to like rub it in every so often. But then obviously my channel took off, and it went from being a friendly rivalry to being more of a partnership where anything I could do to help him make videos and stuff like that we would do. And it was just fun. It was fun to plan ahead. We were already talking about like the next game that comes out that we cover. We're both going to do it. So if I was going to do a second game on my channel, he was going to do the same game, and we were just going to continue to work with each other from here on out. But
Yeah.
obviously, that never happened.
Yeah, like, whenever the exodus of community creators happened, you and Gacha were definitely still still flying the flag for this guy RPG, like, the entire time. Like, everyone seemed very flaky, and I don't think whenever I was watching you guys, like, there was any possibility of you guys jumping ship. You know what I mean? Like, you guys were just like the rocks, the community rocks, as it were, that me and my wife would tune in every day and just see how things are going. See what you guys thinking about the units coming up.
I can't speak for other creators because I don't know them on a personal level, right? But I knew Gacha on a personal level, and the one thing that me and Gacha had in common was we both loved console Disgaea. We both loved Disgaea 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? At that point, 6 hadn't come out, but like we both loved the core franchise. So for us, when a gacha game, we both like gacha gaming, we both had gacha YouTube channels, it was just a natural fit. It's like the reason that we both enjoyed making Dokkan content so much is because we both love Dragon Ball. You know,
Yeah.
I've explained this to you before, Danny, and I've explained this to people on my Discord who keep asking me, why don't you make content for another game? I can't just make content for a game for the sake of making content for a game. I have to like the franchise. I have to like what I'm making content for. I can't make content for the sake of views. I can't do it. It's not in me. It's not the type of person that I am. And I think the reason that me
Otherwise, you'd be covering FIFA pack openings and stuff. Like, if you're just going for the views,
Well,
go for the easy
exactly.
views.
No,
Go
I
for
mean, like a more realistic example of that is, or I would have jumped to do My Hero Academia when it came out, Punishing Grey Raven, jumping to do Nier, all these type of things. People have done it. You know, what I mean, that is what people do. Like again, I'm not throwing shade at anyone, but it's called gacha hopping. People know what gacha hopping is. It's like you jump to the next big thing, you ride it, you get the initial views, you jump to the next big thing. It's a formula. I mean, it's a formula that exists.
And
People
there's an
use.
audience there. There's an audience there for it
Oh
too.
yeah, yeah.
People want to see
But
what the new gacha game is without spending like months and months and months following it.
But both me and Gacha discussed it at length, and we both agreed that we can't do it. We can't just make content on games for the sake of getting views. We have to enjoy it. Why would we put ourselves through playing a game that we don't find fun? Whereas Disgaea, as much as people maybe at one point called me a corporate, funnily enough, Gacha never ever got called the corporate shill thing that I get called, which I always found strange because the both of us done the content, the same kind of content, but I was the one that was the bulk trend shill. That I've never really understood that.
You seem more like the shill. Like, you definitely seem more like the professional, slick kind of shill. Like, Gacha was more down to earth. You were more of the businessman, the executive in the suit kind of guy.
Thanks. But it's like we both kind of kept doing it, like I say, because Disgaea was probably one of, if not my favourite PlayStation games. I still see Disgaea as a PlayStation game. I know now it's not because of the whole Disgaea 6 debacle, but to be honest, I'm still quite salty at this for that. The game exists on JP for PlayStation, and eventually it will exist on PlayStation globally. But they did us dirty. They did PlayStation fans dirty by not releasing the game simultaneously on Switch and PlayStation. So I hold that against you in this. But um,
Very weird decision, by the way. A very weird decision. Like I would have snapped up the PlayStation version just because it would have ran the game better
yeah.
for no other reason, and they just denied my money. So it's like,
Well,
okay, fair enough. Don't.
I think the reason, not to derail this because this is not Disgaea RPG, I think the main reason is the Switch has the best adoption rate of any console, possibly the best adoption rate of any console ever. Switch players are just ravenous for games, so they buy them. You know what I mean? And they buy as many games as possible, I think, so that they can get ports of more games. Because people look at the Switch and they think, oh, if I port my game to that, I'm going to make money. That's why there's so much shovelware on the Switch. Like, the Switch is an absolute wasteland of shovelware that just sits on that store. But anyway, that's getting off the subject. But I think that's why they ported it to the Switch first and had that
Yeah,
sort of a global exclusive. But the one thing I kind of hope, I don't know how I can do it. I don't know if maybe just once a year I'll do like a summon dedication or something. But I want to try somehow to remember him on the channel. I don't know. Again, I don't know how I'll do it. I don't want to do anything that's cheesy or seems weird. But
yeah.
I think just even once a year. But I'd think I'd rather mark his birthday than the day he passed, if that makes sense. I'm not one for marking the day somebody passed. I've just never been that type of person. Like, my mum passed away when I was young, and I think about her on her birthday. I don't think about her on the day she died. You know, it's just me. It's just how I function as a person.
I don't think there's any particular rule you have to follow when it comes to things like that, thankfully.
Sorry, anybody listening. We got a bit morbid there for a while, but we're back.
So to close out September, we had the Disgaea 6 campaign come to the game with Zed and Magdalene. We had Cristo Salvatore. We had the half-year anniversary, which also landed in a very nice good times. We had Fuka Zeno come as a badass appearance. And we also had a team letter. We had a lot of communications, basically, as well, from Bullet Ren between August and September. We had a lot of writing and a lot of them telling us things.
Certainly did. I think that the tail end of September was okay. We got lots of free quarts. There obviously was a little bit of a drought on content again, just towards the end of the month. Um, I mean, after the Asagi event was up, I think you kind of felt like there wasn't anything happening. Badass Banner was good, although there was a bit of controversy about the rates, where they tried to give us improved rates, but to give us the improved rates, they downgraded the other rates, and it became a whole.
What that meant on the banner is that you were more likely, because they increased the rates on the banner. I think it was another CN kind of led controversy where they may have had different rates like a week beforehand or whatever. So we had increased rates on our Xenofuka, but it was only increased rates for the featured unit. And the other units on the banner, the other featured non-main units, they were rated down, so you were less likely to get the other ones, and you're more likely then to get the common pool that was included. So unless you were after the banner unit itself, you were very unlikely to get anything else.
Well, I'm hoping they've taken on the feedback from that. I did say to them that I think a better scenario would be on every badass banner. If they do this, it's fantastic. 50% on the new unit, 30% on the other badass units, and then make up the rest of the rates with the general pool, which would mean the general pool would probably sit somewhere around 22%, or 0.22%, 0.3% on the other badass units, and 0.5% on the new unit. That way, on the featured banner, you're more likely to pull the featured unit, which is yes. But as a runner-up prize, you're more likely to pull a badass, which is yes. And if it doesn't work out, then the rates on the general pool units are a little bit lower. I think if they'd done it that way, most people would be perfectly happy with how the banners were structured.
By the way, to finish off the month of September, speaking of gacha, we actually got a nice little in-game token to mark gacha's passing. How did that actually come about? Were you involved in that?
I mean, if I can speak frankly, I asked them to do it. I contacted them. Me and Gacha had a good relationship with Charlin, and I knew that me and Gacha had a good relationship with Charlin. Don't get me wrong, Gacha himself never talked to Charlin all that much. I did the talking for both of us. I don't really know why. Gacha just thought I had a better rapport with Challen, so he left me to do most of the kind of talking about getting information and stuff like that. But Challen did check in on Gacha and see how he was, and when he was unwell, she messaged me every couple of days, "How's Gacha doing? How's Gacha doing? How's Gacha doing?" And
Yeah.
when I told her that he had passed, she seemed very upset, and I thought to myself, you know, I would love Gacha to be marked in some way, just to kind of show to show his friends outside of Disgaea, because the thing that a lot of people don't realise is most of Gacha's YouTube friends, apart from me, are Dokon. They are. Gacha had two channels. He had a channel that was Gacha Disgaea, but he also has another channel called Gacha Talks. If you search Gacha Talks, you'll see it's just all Dokon content, okay? He need a lot more
Yeah.
subscribers, and that's where most people know him from. But I felt that a lot of people within the Disgaea community had become quite attached to Gacha, and it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to his family. It meant a lot to his friends. So I contacted Challen and I just said, "Look, Challen, could you mark Gacha in some way? Is there any way that we could get an item in game that we could memorialise him with?" Originally, I was aiming to get the item name permanently changed, but I understand the logistics behind that. It would be a bit difficult because basically, if they rename an item, it would change the item's name in every single box across the entire game, and every future copy of that item that was pulled would be changed. They also legally through forward blocks might not be allowed to change the name of items. I don't know exactly why, but they couldn't do it and understood that. So what they did was they gave a nice memorial message on the Discord. They put an in-game message out for Gacha, and obviously in the gift box they put out a belt. I suggested giving him a belt. The only reason I suggested the belt is because she wasn't sure what to give him, and I thought, well, if it's something that's at least usable to people, they're more likely to keep it. Now, I didn't want people to get an item to remember Gacha just so it was good, if that made sense. But if the item was at least good, people are less likely to go, "Oh, I'm just going to bin this," or whatever, you know. I know that probably sounds
Yeah.
heartless or whatever, but I just wanted it to be something that people would keep. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if they sent out a level one common, I mean, I'm not being funny. Some people would just sell that regardless of the meaning behind it. So if it was like a level 40, level 35 rarity item, I knew most people would be likely to lock it and keep it. Um, but yeah, Challen was great. She contacted her bosses and stuff and says, "Look, I want this to happen, and can we make it happen?" And it did, and she put out a memorial. I don't know who designed the picture. I think the picture might have been done by their art department, but they made the picture for Gacha where Gacha's image was in the moon with the printies at the bottom, kind of upset about obviously his passing, and they put a nice message and stuff. I don't know. I can't remember another Gacha game that's done that for a content creator, and like I think quite highly of them for that. I think they didn't have to do it. They could have quite easily just went, okay, you know. I think they went. To me personally, I think they went above and beyond. I know I requested it, but they didn't have to do it, and I think quite a lot of them for doing that.
Yeah, it was definitely a non-expected sort of thing. Normally, companies are very distant, even with their closest fans and content creators. They don't always have a very close relationship. There's not really much you can do about it. But seeing anything like that pop up in game was very nice and very nicely appreciated. I hope by the people that knew him.
Yeah, I think no, it was. It definitely was. Like I know because I tweeted out about it. Like it became. Well, I don't really like this side of things, but it's the biggest tweet I've ever made from my account. The Dokkan community's friends and stuff like that all responded to it, so I know that people cared about it.
Looking at the timeline, that brings us all the way up to October. And to be honest, considering October is still unfolding, I think that's a discussion best left for another day. So we're gonna wrap up our wee summary here of the first half year essentially of Disgaea RPG. Looking back on the whole timeline, do you have any thoughts of how far we've come since launch? Like what's
People don't realise that I'm looking at this timeline on a page right now, and I'm starting to realise why it feels like longer than 6 months. Like seeing it all, I can now relate in my head to why it feels like it's been longer than 6 months. Um, overall, I think it's had its ups and it's had its downs. I think there's been periods where it's had more downs than ups, and I think unfortunately those downs have stained the game. But I do feel like we're on the road to recovery. I don't feel that anything that went wrong was actually that significant, but the way things get blown up online and the way that people can exaggerate some things can make new players think that something is worse than it actually is. But I feel like with pity being implemented, with the potential for new players coming along for the Seven Deadly Sins, etc., they're going to join a game that's in a better position than it was when we joined the game, let's be honest. So these
Oh,
new
for sure, for sure.
these new players may well stick around and we could start to grow as a player base.
Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I know we scheduled for an X amount of time. I think we've gone over it a little bit, but I think we've had a very thorough discussion of most of the highs and lows of the past couple of months since the game was launched. So thank you very much.
Nah, I told my wife it'd be an hour and it's been an hour and a half. She's phoned the police on you, Danny. The police are coming to get you. No, but it's been great. It's been great once again, mate. I've told you anytime I'll come back.
You've been listening to the Makai Sentai podcast, episode 3. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to like and subscribe. Feel free to comment on the episode and share your own experiences playing Disgaea RPG.